Hello, everyone. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J More Living. I am a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Welcome to the show. Feel free to post your questions for our guest. I will be checking throughout the show. You'll sometimes see me tilt my head. Back for the second time here on the Food Enthusiast, friend, chef, author, baking instructor, and crab cake lover. Let's welcome Nick Malgieri, a legend in his own time who has taught the intricacies of baking to numerous chefs and home cooks as well. Author of 12 cookbooks. He worked he was the pastry chef at the Hotel de Paris in Monte Carlo, Windows on the World, and I know he's very busy. He's squeezing out about 20 minutes for us today. So, hello, Nick. What's
Hey,
on your plate
Dara.
today?
Pardon me. What did I make today? Let's see. So I'm doing a lot of teaching for the 92nd Street Y. And what that entails is making videos of all the demos. And then, I introduce them and answer questions on a Zoom call. So let's see. This morning we started out with a very an adaptation of a Pierre Hermé recipe. His is called Infinitely Vanilla Tart, and I called mine Intensely Vanilla. So it's a mascarpone mousse with lots of Tahitian vanilla beans in it, and in a sweet dough crust. And let's see, what else did we make? I made two different kinds of very vanilla-based cookies, Viennese vanilla crescents, as well as French sablé type cookies that are strongly vanilla flavored. And today's the vanilla day. Yesterday we did, it's a class that's going to be called Vanilla and Chocolate. So the Tuesday, we did all the chocolate things, which was a chocolate praline tart, a chocolate raspberry cake using these very delicate flourless chocolate cake layers, Viennese Rigo squares, which are chocolate, 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 and then a chocolate glaze. So
Do you
just
think
in
there's
case
enough
there wasn't
chocolate?
enough chocolate in it. Yes.
Right. Before I forget, I want to tell people that these classes are accessible at New York's 92nd Street Y, and that website will come up, and that's 92ny.org. So you can always, there'll be a link to everything that Nick has done there. So we don't want to forget that. You brought up vanilla. And I know people go into stores, and with my time with Vans, there's bourbon vanilla, there's Tahitian vanilla, there's Venetian. I mean, there's vanilla seeds that we take out of the pods, and then there's the liquid, sort of like bean paste, vanilla bean
The
paste.
vanilla bean paste. Yeah. Yeah. That's invert sugar that has all the millions of little vanilla bean seeds in it.
Is there any guidelines people should go by? I mean, there's
Well,
artificial vanilla.
years ago, when we had a baker's dozen group in New York, and we were pretty active. We would have educational programs maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And once we invited Nielsen Massey Vanilla from Chicago to come and do a presentation, and different members made different things using either vanilla extract or vanilla beans. And the other thing that we did was we used Madagascar bourbon vanilla, which is the most common kind of vanilla that you can get. And Tahitian vanilla was just kind of on the horizon. And even though, some of the recipes I've done for this class, I scraped the seeds out of the vanilla bean and use those. But with the recipes that we tried for comparison, the extract always won over the beans, and the Madagascar bourbon vanilla was always thought to be more balanced and vivid flavored than the Tahitian vanilla. Tahitian vanilla has a kind of one note, sort of cherry sweet flavor, and it's strong, and it's very easy to identify, but it lacks the complexity that some other vanillas have. But, that's on a kind of, how shall I say, that's on a kind of connoisseurship level too. So, I mean, for ordinary use, that little bottle of McCormick vanilla that you can buy in the supermarket is going to give you very adequate vanilla flavoring. Don't they come from Baltimore?
Yes, McCormick is based here.
See that?
Right. And I just figured since we were talking vanilla, we would do that. Before I forget, because I know we're on limited time, I want to tell people that Nick is going to be here in Baltimore on Saturday, May 21st, and I'm going to read you the details. So you don't want to miss out. I hear there's like 4 seats left, maybe. And Chef Liz Wilcox, who is out in Jarrettsville, has a cooking school called Basic Needs Culinary School. And they're going to be demonstrating a spring menu brunch and cooking demonstration with Nick. On the menu is Prosecco, mimosas, chilled or warm roasted tomato and red pepper bisque, sesame ricini crisp Italian breadsticks, spinach and ricotta pie in a foolproof olive oil crust, tomato, cucumber, and green bean salad with mint vinaigrette, flaky scones with lemon curd, blueberry crumb cake, cocoa banana coffee cake. Now that's Basic Needs. It is out in Jarrettsville, Maryland. It's Saturday, May 21st. It starts at noon. There'll be a link coming up here, but you can reach out to Liz via text at 410-877-5199. And what's included is your seat at the show, brunch, copy of the recipes, photo op, and book signing with Nick. And did I mention, as she said, mimosas? So anybody under 21 will not be served. You'll have to show proof of age. And I had suggested that it was a great Mother's Day gift. So maybe 4 seats left. You don't want to miss out. You never want to miss Nick doing a demo. It is beyond educational. It's entertaining. And so all the details will float up a link to that. I have a question from my friend Jeffrey, because I took him to the great New York Noodle Town. So he's asking, he says, you recommended that in New York. Any other off-beaten path restaurants in New York that you believe are a must-visit these days?
I no longer, unfortunately, have to say, no longer recommend Noodle Town. I went a while back, and because I guess of being closed during the lockdown, maybe they had staff changes, and the food just was not anywhere near as good as it used to be. So that's very sad. Off the path places in New York. Well, if you want to get on, I'll take a long subway ride to Brooklyn. There is very close to where I live. I live in a section of South Brooklyn that's called Bay Ridge. And there's a very thriving Middle Eastern community here. And we have some really excellent Turkish restaurants. There's one that's called I Kebab, A-Y. It's actually the owner's last name. That's on 86th Street and 4th Avenue. And in fact, if you take the subway, take the elevator up to the sidewalk and you don't even have to cross the street. But this is a great little place. It is Turkish food like you would find. I mean, I've been to Istanbul several times. So when I went there the first time, I was astounded. It is very much like what you would get in Turkey. What we lack around here, and I haven't been going a little bit more far afield for it, is Bay Ridge doesn't have any good Chinese food. But a little bit further into the section that's called Sunset Park, which is on 8th Avenue, starting in the 50s and 60s, there are some really good places. There's a place where I go. I go twice a year for my blood test for cholesterol. So of course you have to go fasting. So I always make my appointment about 8:30 in the morning, and my favorite dim sum place, which is called Bamboo Garden, opens at 9 o'clock. So I'm finished and famished because I haven't eaten the night before. And they have a really nice selection. It's really good. Of course, everybody, at least I know, I've been to a couple that are in California, but the best dim sum in the world is a Taiwanese outfit that's called Din Tai Fung. And I don't believe there are any on the East Coast, but they're all over Asia. And it's like it takes those little dumplings to a whole new level. The skins are paper thin, and the fillings are really well seasoned. So, but that's Bamboo Garden is a close second.
Okay, well, let's get back to baking because that's why I believe people are tuned in. And baking is a science. So I'm sure one of the questions you get is about substituting ingredients. What are your thoughts or guidance on that when somebody says, well, it says butter, but I want to use coconut oil?
Yeah, well, good luck. That's all I have to say. You know, I have had I remember I got a phone call once. I had made strudel at a local cooking school. And the next day I had a listed that was back in the days of phone books, right? My phone number was listed. I pick up the phone and somebody says, oh, I'm thus and such. I was at your class last night. I said, yeah, I remember you. She said, I made the strudel. It was awful. I said, really? I said, did you? Well, I mean, I would have understood if maybe when I made the strudel, the dough turned out too thick. I said, was the dough thin like what I did? She said, oh, yeah, the dough was very thin. It just was gummy and tasteless. And I said, well, a good strudel uses maybe, up to 6 ounces of butter in it, because once you pull out that dough to be less than paper thin, you need to have that butter on it and in between the layers so that they kind of fry a little bit in the butter and they absorb the flavor from the butter and they get delicate. She said, oh, too fattening. I didn't use any butter in it.
Yeah. Okay. If you're a seasoned baker, maybe you know what you're doing. It'll take time, but read the recipe and follow that first, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I do it with my own recipes sometimes. I'll say, no, maybe I wonder if this is going to be any good with a little bit more sugar in it or whatever. So, I mean, people do have that instinct to experiment, but yeah, substitutions. I remember there was a book that came out, well, I guess more than 20 years ago, but it was by a fairly young person. It was like this enormously thick book and all about baking theory, and there was something like 75 pages of substitutions. And I read through it and I said, if you don't have cardamom, use cinnamon and lemon zest. Is that really going to do it? Substitutions are, I don't know. If you don't have cardamom, make a different recipe.
Right. Well, we do have the luck now to punch in a couple things into Google and have a recipe come up. Whether it's any good.
Dangerous. Yeah, that's very dangerous.
Okay.
I know. I mean, I've seen YouTube go from being how can I say, informational with interest. I mean, they're wonderful informational recipes. I was just looking at somebody from a butter company in Denmark who was demonstrating really authentic and painstakingly made Danish pastries. But you have a lot of people, they're kind of pandering to lowest common denominator tastes, like the blogger who read a recipe for lasagna alla bolognese that has both bolognese meat sauce and bechamel in it, and then made a recipe for spaghetti that had bechamel and meat sauce in it. And it's like, people don't know when they're taking off in a bizarre direction. It's unfortunate. It's it takes experience and a palate and a really good self-critical faculty in order to be able to be creative.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, it comes up a lot. How do you know when something in the oven is done? Now, one of the things that I do is I go in halfway through and turn my pan. Whether it's right or wrong, I do that because I hope that it'll be more even. And if the recipe says 40 minutes, I tend to rely on my nose and check it at least 5 minutes before the finish time to see what's going on. Any other suggestions to know whether something's done?
Yeah, I mean, when I write a recipe, I always give the characteristics. Bake the tart until the edge of the crust is deep golden and the filling is set, which of course you can check by just giving a little push and see whether or not the filling jiggles. About 30 to 35 minutes, for example. So I remember once I had lots of leftovers from a class, and a friend of mine was going to be having a big party out on Long Island. So I packed all this stuff with me, got on the train, and I brought some tart pans, and there was going to be a big party. So I was in the kitchen making a bunch of different tarts and things and other things to be baked. And her husband came over and put a timer on the table in front of me. And he said, "Here, you're going to need this." I said, "No, I don't use that." He said, "How do you know when it's done then?" So timing is important. It's just as important as giving those characteristics, right? But timing is only a guideline. It's not, it's been in half an hour, I'll take it out. I don't know. Is it show? If it's a cake, can you put a toothpick or a little sharp knife into it and see whether or not any wet batter comes out with it? Because if the recipe says 30 minutes and you have wet batter on your knife blade, better not take it out of the oven because it won't be done. So it's that double-barreled thing. The other thing I do is I like to check about halfway through. If I put something in the oven and I know it needs to bake for an hour, I'll set a timer for maybe 35 minutes and then come and take a look. And yeah, turning things back to front, that's good. Or in baking cookies, which bake only a very short time, if you need to use an upper and lower rack at the same time, then you need to both turn them back to front and also change them top to bottom. Or sometimes if I have to put two pans of cookies in at the same time, the one that goes on the lower rack, I double. So I bake it on two pans stacked together so that insulates from strong bottom heat. Understanding how an oven works also makes a big difference, because when you put something in the bottom of the oven, like a tart or a pie, because you want the bottom to get a lot of bottom heat so that it bakes through well. If you're making, gratin dauphinois, if you're making scalloped potatoes and you want them to be beautifully brown on top, you want to put that in the upper part of the oven, because the upper part of the oven concentrates top heat. So that's also an important thing to understand.
Right. And just to remind people, you can find out about all of Nick's books at www.nickmalgieri.com. His Instagram is Nick_Malgieri. And all this will float up in the notes section so you can connect with Nick should you want to. And then, of course, he'll be in town on the 21st. And let's see, I think that's Preakness Day, Saturday, right?
Really? Oh boy, Baltimore's going to be hopping.
Yep, that's the day of the Preakness. And let's see, let me ask you one or two of my quick questions. We're at 20 minutes. I'm going to ask you two quick questions. If you could go tell your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Keep reading.
Okay. And if you woke up tomorrow with a new talent, what would that new talent be?
Oh my gosh. With a new
What
talent.
talent would you like to have? You'd wake up tomorrow and you'd be,
Oh. I, you know. Oh, I know. I'd like to acquire the talent of being able to clean because I'm not good at that.
what was
Cleaning
the
up after
talent?
myself in the kitchen, cleaning. I'm just that's definitely a talent that would, yeah. If I rubbed the magic lamp, yeah, I would definitely be able to get that.
Well, Nick, we can talk forever, but you need to get back to working for the filming for those videos for the 92nd New York Y. And I want to thank you. Welcome to Baltimore. Hope you get a crab cake somewhere in between your travels.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so.
And I'm just going to tell people who's going to be on the show next week. And thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Next week's show, not next week, it's 2 weeks, May 26th. The guest will be Jessica Formicola, and we're talking beef. Jessica had a very successful blog called Savory Experiment. She's actually from Baltimore, and she's written many recipes for many of the magazines. And her first cookbook is coming out. It's called Talking Beef. Let's see, or Beef It Up. And from show-stopping recipes that are quick and budget-friendly. So tune in. I will not be here next Thursday, but the following Thursday, the 26th, that'll be Jessica. We have a short show today, so please share with friends. I think we had a couple of very interesting points that Nick brought up about baking. And again, all his books are available. And if you're a baker, I'm sure you have at least one of his books or two on your shelf. I want to thank you for tuning into the show. The show's video will be up on jmoreliving.com and jmoreliving's Facebook page. If you need to reach me, you can reach me through my social, which is at Dara Cooks. And my email is food@jmoreliving.com. We love when you share the show, your favorite shows with your friends and family. Everything's there in the archives. Every one of the over 100 shows is in the archives, both on Facebook and jmoreliving.com. So, as always, thank you for joining us. May your plates always, always remain full.